How you guys doing today? I'm David.
And I'm Brian.
And we are Design One Web, and today we're going to be talking to you a little bit about the dangers of having too many plugins in your WordPress site. Now, Brian, one of the things that we hear about all the time is WordPress is great to use because you can add plugins and do almost anything. But what do you think one of the major dangers or problems that people run into when they have a lot of WordPress plugins in their site?
Probably one of the big ones is security. Most of the exploits that we often have heard about in the last several years with WordPress have come through various plugins. There's some sort of loophole in the code that they were able to exploit. Maybe the plugin hadn't been updated in a while. So simply put, at that point, the more plugins you have, the more probability you're creating that there will be a loophole that can be exploited into your website. So generally speaking, the more you can do with less plugins, the safer your site tends to be. But also from the development and speed standpoint, why else do plugins?
Well, one thing I want to go back to what you were talking about there about the security, and as you were talking about it, I was thinking that's exactly like a house, if you think about it that way, because if you've got a house that has a lot of windows
Yes.
and a lot of doors, that's more places that a burglar or an intruder could enter. So it makes it a whole lot easier. Then you've got to make sure that every one of those doors or windows is locked, latched, and secured, whereas if you only have a couple of doors, a couple of entry points, it's a whole lot more secure.
Right.
So yeah, that was perfect. It's because you've got more entry points in for security problems. But talking about speed, I agree 100%. One of the things, when you add more code to any website, it's going to slow that site down, especially if you're not sure that developer that wrote that plugin is really concerned about writing good, clean code.
Yeah.
So you're adding, every time you add something to the site, you have the potential of slowing it down. And we know that Google really doesn't like slow sites.
Right.
And not only does Google not like a slow site, your visitors don't either. And that's really why Google dings them so bad, is because the user experience is just so terrible, and that's Google's big thing. Google's big thing is the user experience of the sites they're sending people to.
And I think viewers could sort of analogously think of a plugin as a container that it takes a certain amount of code to even build that container, let alone what the plugin is actually doing. A good example, Google Analytics code plugins. For people who don't know how to go into the head area, or it's not built into their theme or their building framework that has a place to just put it, and you don't know how to do it manually, they make plugins that say, hey, just stick it in here, I'll handle it for you. It is very convenient, but the amount of code you're adding to your site, putting it in the head yourself versus having a whole plugin that's a whole little piece of software to make all of that happen, that's considerably more code you're adding to make that ease of use versus finding another way to just do it without more plugins. And that would be a good example of convenient but inefficient.
Right, and I think too that's one of those things where when you're paying a developer to really give you a complete solution that is 100% custom, where they're writing everything and tying it all in and not using plugins or not using theme frameworks, they're hand coding everything for you, you're going to pay more for that because that takes more time than pulling a plugin in that will do this same thing if you hand code it in. But what you will have in the end when you're getting that custom solution is you're going to have something that is cleaner, it's leaner, and it's going to be in almost all cases faster than a site that had to have 15 different plugins to add all that functionality, or had to have a framework and a builder, because a lot of times you're going to wind up getting functionality that you really don't need just in order to have the functionality of this one thing that you do need.
Right.
So if you limit the number of plugins, what you're limiting is your security risk, and you're also increasing your site speed. You're going to be improving your visitor experience, and by that you're going to be improving the way that Google looks at you. So as few plugins as you can use, that's what you need. I'm David.
And I'm Brian. Thanks for watching.
Yep, we're Design One Web, and we'll be back to you later on with some more WordPress tips.